Welcome to the Lucidus podcast, where we explore everything because I believe in the infinite, unbounded potential within each of us. And also because I believe everything is connected to everything else. And so when you touch one thing, you touch all things. Today we have 3 questions. Again, 3 questions with the beautiful Annika. And I don't think I have seen Annika for I was thinking about it, almost 2 years. Is that about right?
I think the last time I saw you, we were horseback riding,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah.
In a
Horseback
very
riding.
different lifetime. Yeah,
Yeah, it does feel like a different lifetime, doesn't it?
it
Yes.
does. Yes.
Yes. We were hanging out with some very wealthy people um, that maybe had values different than ours, but maybe not. So I want to, and it was when I was living in Telluride. Yeah. So Annika's beautiful. And you also have had a pretty amazing experience, a new blessing come into your life. Well, I guess a couple of big blessings. You got married, and the second one,
A baby,
a little
boy.
baby. Yeah, your first little baby.
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions before we start?
No, just that I have always admired you, looked up to you, loved you, adored you, and I'm so grateful to be here.
You're sweet. Well, yeah, I feel the same way about you. So, and we had some beautiful times. Oh, so I do want to say, so at the time when I knew Annika, she was managing a yoga studio in Telluride, and I worked for her there. So that's how we, that's how we came to know each other, was through yoga. So yeah, that was really beautiful. Okay, so the first question is: Is there something particular in your life that you've learned now, but you wish you would have learned a lot earlier in life?
Mm. Such a big answer that I think I have, and it's been tied into to so much. But I think it's about um, to simplify. It's about giving people grace, um, both for them, but also for me and for my well-being. But it's come about. It's evolved through many years of friction and trying to find the path that's the um, least challenging, not necessarily um, the easiest, but the smoothest in terms of how the universe wants things to go. And I grew up in a rural area. Let's start there. And a lot of people had a very different life than me growing up. I went to school with um, kids whose moms were addicts. We were in a rural, small town, addict moms, alcoholic dads, kids who had never left the town, let alone the country. And these are my best friends. And so I was able to start to take on new ways, different ways of seeing the world and understanding the world, making sense of the world. And then I got funneled into all the things that I was really interested in, liberal arts school and psychology and my liberal hippie weird lifestyle that I went through. But once again, I found myself uh, back in a rural area. I'm living outside of Telluride. I'm living amongst people who have voted very differently than me, who see the world very differently. And I've learned to find grace for all these people and to love and respect them. And it's such a interesting thing to have right now in such trying times. But to have friends who are so different was a lesson I did learn when I was little, but I don't think it really clicked until recently when I moved back into a rural, very conservative area. And it feels good, and I think that's why it's important to have the lesson. It's not even about other people. It's it's really about me. It feels really good to be able to connect with and be at peace with people who are so different from me. And I just think that it's one of the things that's drawn me to a rural area because I feel it reciprocated in so many ways. Um, And even amongst people who have such different values than me, I actually feel like maybe there's something here that's actually the path forward, as opposed to other ways of being. So this is the lesson I wish I saw earlier, because I think it caused me so much angst for so many years. And I think I came at the world and people with some anger and some misunderstanding and misguided energy that could have been manifested a bit more beautifully and with more ease.
So that's interesting. I would say that's very helpful for me right now in my journey. Offering people grace, and like you said, it's so much for myself, like my own inner peace. Less so than for them. And so here's an interesting thing. So I grew up on a farm as well. Like I grew up in a farm town. Um, and the people that I grew up with had very different ideologies than I did. But here's the interesting thing, and if you want to speak to this, if you've had this experience, some of our foundational core values were the same.
Yes.
And I really admired them for that.
Yes.
They're hardworking, they have a lot of ethics, they show up.
Yeah. I think what I found, and I actually just wrote an article about it for a small town newspaper, is that the values are actually the same, and they're really beautiful, and they're ones that you might not find in an urban area, such as taking care of your neighbor, shoveling them out in the winter, protecting each other, cooking for each other. It's these like basic nourishing, caring for the land, farmers who live off the land actually, and are way more connected to it than maybe the guys who I wrote for at Sierra Club Magazine in Oakland. um,
Mhm.
so it's interesting to navigate that and try to understand it, um, when it comes down to politics or party lines or whatever we've been funneled into. But I agree, the foundations are beautiful. And it's here, one of the things I wrote about is the idea of hoarding and non-hoarding, and sharing and not sharing. And one value I've always found in rural areas, conservative rural areas, is this idea of sharing what you have and making sure everyone around you has enough, which is a very socialist ideal at its root. So it's fascinating.
Well, and what made you come up with the idea of what had you seen to come up with the hoarding, non-hoarding, sharing, not sharing? Where'd that come from?
I think it came from experience with living in urban settings. Telluride isn't urban, but it feels urban in so many ways. And just the way people do hoard money, stuff, clothing, the values that we put on things that are just awful and disgusting. And a shaman that I've been working with recently said, if you find yourself with too much, it means that somebody else has too little. And value is set in stone around me for sure.
Well, and it's interesting. I think no, too much is definitely can it can be difficult I think sometimes for people to understand they have too much. It's
Yeah.
almost like the inner barometer is broken, and there's never enough, right?
Fear. It's a scarcity mindset. It's fear.
Yeah. And I would say Telluride was a fascinating place for me to live the few summers that I spent there. Um, and I love Telluride. I mean, first of all, just
Totally.
geographically, I mean, the mountains are amazing, like just that. But I met some of the most amazing people. But I feel like it was the tiniest microcosm of the macrocosm. Like the haves and haves not, the have and have nots were enormous.
Hmm.
Um, and it was crazy to me. Yeah, that within literally 4 blocks,
Hmm.
you have the haves and have-nots. They live so close. So it was a fascinating experience for me, and to get to know people as people.
Hmm.
That was another thing, is I began to understand that wealth didn't change everyone.
Hmm.
At first I had a big bias around that. I was like, oh, the wealthy, they act like this. And then I would meet someone and I'd be like, oh, they're so great. And then I'd find out that they were probably one of the richest people there. And I was like, oh, and here I thought.
Hmm. Bias. Yeah. Yeah, Telluride is like just a study in and of itself. It's so weird being outside of Telluride now and looking in. And I think thinking about this hoarding, non-hoarding attachment concepts, you almost get swept into it, and you forget what's normal, and what is too much and what is enough. And um, it's feels really good for me to be back out in the real world, remembering what is enough.
Mm, I love that. Okay, well, I want to say for myself, I definitely want to continue to find grace. And I know we're talking kind of in a world's disparity right now, but for me, um, offering grace to all people for my own peace. That's definitely on my radar. So thank you for that. Okay, so next question. What is something you're learning right now?
Hmm. Well, I just took on a different role in my job, and I'm taking on the role of director of extension. I work for Colorado State University Extension. And if you don't know what extension is, there's an extension office in most rural towns across the US. They're connected to their land grant universities, and it's basically a way to disperse information, research backed information into rural areas, and resources, money, and education, and connectivity to the university, to education, to intellectualism, all of it. Um, so right now I'm learning so much about just being like a connector. I'm realizing that that's all my job is. It's to say the local regional food hub needs funding so that they can get WIC participants connected to local farms. Okay, go to the USDA, which as of 5 p.m. today, we're shut out of all that money. But so I'm learning how to just be a connector. And I think I've always had jobs where I'm doing things. I'm teaching yoga, or I'm teaching a workshop, or working with kids. But it's almost like I get to sit back and like take these puzzle pieces and just connect. And it's such a different type of work. Very cerebral, but it's like a high. Um, I get high off of it. I come home high. Like, oh, I just talked to this person, and I already know I'm going to get them in touch with this other person with the SBDC, because then we can start doing this. And um, so I'm learning how to be a connector. It's a whole new realm for me.
So there have been, I feel like, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without some really amazing connections that were made. Can you think of a moment in your life where connection was made that just changed the course and brought you to where you are?
So many. I mean, almost every stage of my life has been about um, a random meeting in a coffee shop, or whatever it is. Some of the jobs I've held. A yoga student who happened to be a cannabis and wine lawyer who I ended up doing copy editing for years. Um, randomly come to Telluride on a ski trip and end up meeting all these people. And then there's the yoga studio, and I take the yoga, like everything just feels like it's one connection to the next. A friend of mine who wrote for Sierra Club magazine, who told me about this guy who worked there, and I email him one day, and he just so happens to need somebody to run their blog, Daily Planet, and I hop. And even moving out to Norwood, Colorado, and meeting someone on the street one of my first days who tells me about this job in the extension office. So I'm always like painfully aware of these connections and things happening at the right moment. And I have deep trust in the universe, or whatever it is we want to lean on, the threads that bind us together to bring me to whatever's going to be next. I'm trying to trust in that right now, as I feel like the world is collapsing, that things are happening for a reason always, and these connections get made that draw us along to the next stage, and to put faith in that, and and relax into it as well.
Yeah. I didn't give a date yet, so I'll just say it's January 2024. And there are just a lot. No, sorry, it's January 2025. Sorry, new year. It's January 2025. So there's just a lot of shifts happening in the world.
You're telling everyone, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just telling
Here we are,
everyone. January.
5. Guess what just happened?
Yeah, January 2025. Lots of stuff's happening. Um, so the interesting thing now, do you know, I often talk on the podcast about when I say everything's connected to everything else. Do you know the story of Indra's net through yoga?
No, I don't know Indra's
You
net.
know, I told it once before, but I'm going to mention it here because I think what you're talking about, it's so beautiful. It's exactly what I talk about, where I'm like, I talk about everything because everything's connected to everything else. So Indra is the creator of this net, and she starts weaving this net, and at the center of each of the knots is a jewel. And she basically, this whole cosmos is a net with all these tiny little jewels, and we are all these tiny little jewels. And we being like, you could say it's all humans, but you could just all say it's life. Life is all this enormous net with all these tiny jewels. And if you touch anywhere on the net, right, if you touch one of the little jewels, the whole net, vibrates and ripples. So you
Mhm.
basically affected the whole net. So the connections, like you are suddenly connected, and the net can fold anyway. So yeah, it's just, I love hearing you talk about those connections. And it's actually something I struggle with. Like I struggle trusting that
Mm.
in the connections, and that they'll be made. And I often worry that I need to force it. So hearing you talk about it so beautifully reminds me like, oh yeah, it's happening. It happens.
It's so real. And I remember in one of my first ceremony sessions when I sat with ayahuasca and learning that, like very, very distinctly learning that everything's connected. Everything that brought you to this moment is so freaking connected that you have no idea. And it's so in me now. I did have trouble trusting that before, but it's like one of the places I actually can find peace now.
Mm,
And I'm grateful for that knowledge. It's huge. It's huge.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. The final question. So let's say many decades from now, you've lived a very, very long, fabulous life, and you're laying peacefully, you're not laying, you're lying peacefully. You're lying peacefully and you're closing your eyes, and you realize you're about to have your final breath in this form, and you're about to pass onward. And as you consider the passing onward, what would you like, or what do you think your final thought will be?
Hmm. Something just totally popped into my head. And I think it's something that comes to me every time I'm feeling resistance to going to the next stage, or even when I'm like super high and I'm like bugging out, or, I don't know, something weird's happening. But I always come back to the little mantra, I accept. And it's gotten me through like the craziest of experiences. Just those words, I accept, I accept. And I think that would be a beautiful thought to have, is I accept whatever's coming next, whatever's already happened, whatever's happening right now. Just I accept.
Accept. Oh, I love that. I love that. That's really, oh, who we got here? Oh, that's so
Remember,
cute.
maybe you do. There's
Oh,
Maya.
hi, sweetheart. I'm glad you joined. Um, okay, so and now I have just like a little bonus question.
Okay.
So if you were in my seat and you were going to ask someone 3 questions, or many someone's, what would one of those questions be? Like, what's something you would love to ask people?
I don't really know how to word it, but something I think about a lot and wonder about for people is kind of like, what's your soul's purpose for this life? What? Because we
Mm.
all have some real work that we're doing, and it's like this theme that keeps coming back in our lives, and we keep having to come back to the same work. But it's also something we're really good at, like sharing, because we've done so much work on it, but we also struggle with it. So maybe that's just it. What's your soul's purpose or work or something like that. That's something I wonder about a lot of people.
Hmm. And if I were going to ask you that bonus question, what is your soul's purpose or work?
I think something this is probably such a common one, but just something I work with a lot is just the um, intuition and being intuitive. Every time I've not listened to my intuition, something devastating happens, or something goes awry. And when I do, it's incredible. It's like this amazing feeling of like, oh yeah, I was right. But something that was like beyond my mind, but something even deeper than that knew that. Um, so I keep coming back to intuition, but I also share it a lot with people. Trust your intuition. What's your gut saying? What's your gut saying? And such a light thing to say to somebody, but it's also so heavy at the same time. Um, but I have a lot of stories that I've been able to share with people about when I've trusted or not trusted my intuition and what's been the result or the consequence.
So I have a question, and I've asked a few different people when they've brought up something that no one's answered the way you have, but in different aspects when I've been interviewing someone and they brought this up. So as you know, I've had some traumatic things happen, and I often struggle between understanding when it's intuition and when it's like an old traumatic and
Yeah.
when it's an old traumatic response. Do you have would you have some thoughts or advice on that differentiating those? Because they can both often be very strong, but they can also be subtle.
I have like an answer to it. I guess my only thought on that, because I've thought about it too, is it a bad thing that my trauma is telling me something here?
I never thought of that.
If everything's connected and I had that experience, is there a reason in this moment now that I'm sitting here having this come up and it's guiding me?
I have never had anyone, never, not a therapist, not a, no, I've never had anyone reflect it that way. That's actually very, very helpful. I think I still second guess and doubt myself too much.
Same, totally, all the time.
Yeah.
We all do. I think everything in the world is works against us oftentimes to trust ourselves, trust that guidance.
Do you feel like that's like built like kind of the fabric of our society, or do you feel like it's almost like the cosmos? Like it's just sort of like the cosmic experience of being human, or is it our particular North American, somewhat
Yeah,
whatever society this is?
fabric of our society. I think it's a sad aspect to the fabric of our society, but again, it's there for a reason. And maybe the process of working through that challenge is an end in and of itself, you know?
Do you have I'm not even sure what I'm asking or why I'm asking, but I want to ask this. Do you have like once you've sort of committed to the decision you're going to make, um, do you find a place of peace? Does it happen for you, or do you just say like, okay, done? We're going to be at peace with this decision that we've made it. We're done. Like, or no, like it.
No, I'm
Okay.
terrible. This is one of the things I work on. Yeah, I'm terrible with it. But I don't know. I have a friend who's a doctor, and we always talk about like decisions because he has to make a million decisions a day. Like that really affect people's lives,
Hmm.
and all day long. But they have to be quick. Like he can't really like he can think a little bit about it, but he's a GI doc, so it's not like sometimes it's big, sometimes it's little, but sometimes it's really affecting somebody's life. Sometimes it's cancer, and making decisions really quick and not having and there's consequences. And I don't know, like I've thought so much about like right or wrong. Like we have that's another thing built into our fabric of right decision, wrong decision. Um, and tied back into our gut. And I don't know, is there a right or wrong decision you could make? Do you just make a decision and then things follow? I don't even know what I'm saying, but things follow as they should or as they would with that decision being made. And it's not a bad or a good thing, even though it feels bad or good.
Hmm.
I don't know.
I've had, well, it's your answer kind of reminded me again of Indra's net in that, like, if I'm supposed to get from here to here and I make this decision, I could still get to where I like am supposed to go.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I would say the other thought that comes to mind, I don't know if you experience this, but I feel like there are some things in life, it doesn't matter how hard you try to not make it happen, it is going to happen.
Right.
Like,
I think that's right too.
yeah. And
I mean,
also,
there's layers to this, right? Like it's yeah, there's so many layers to this to
mhm.
like what impact are we even having in our human peon brains by making a decision? Is it just that it has on us internally? Like, right? Like how much control do we have? I don't know. That's the
Okay,
answer.
okay, I'm going to ask you a question because I'm starting to change my viewpoint. And my poor audience is like, wait, you've been telling us all the opposite, and now you're changing your mind. But I go, so I've talked a lot about, positive thinking and how it is, which is one thing, but how it can lead to manifestation. And yet I'm starting to question some of that in that I have done so much like positive working toward manifesting certain things and they will not do not happen. And I started to ask, I don't know how much I believe in manifestation. Like I just think sometimes we're thinking about positive things because they should and they will and they are going to happen and so they do. But
Mm,
I mean, I don't know because there have been amazing things that have happened in my life that I never thought of. Amazing.
of
Never
course.
thought. Yeah. So what? Okay. So my question is, what do you think of manifestation? What and positive sort of like thinking.
Well, you're making me question it too. I mean, I'm all about the vision board at the beginning of the year,
I
and
have one right over here.
mine's yellow too. Actually, I have mine on my wall. Um, But maybe the question we should be asking is, does it really matter if it works, or does it just make us feel better? And that's a better way to live, is positively thinking about how we want things to go. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. That's just my thought that I'm having now as we just went into. But I do think there's something momentum building about envisioning what we want in life because it builds our own internal momentum towards that goal.
Mhm.
Um, does it always make it happen? Maybe not, but it does always make me feel better.
I like that. I like the momentum building. I can feel that and sort of go along with that. But I do feel like there have been things that I have worked very hard to manifest, and after many years, I realized that isn't going to happen. That's not on your. It's just not there. And I have to say, finding Telluride was an absolute most freakish thing that happened. It was all because of snowstorm. And
Okay.
I got shuttled up to a place. I had sort of heard of Telluride, but I got shuttled to this place called Telluride, and I was like, "The hell am I gonna do here? I've got to spend some nights here." And then I find out, falling in love with the place and living there for a little while. So it was like, and I was never on my radar, and just I'm not passing that off as like just a cute little thing. Telluride continues to be. I was actually thinking of the other day. It's one of the three places on this planet where my soul is like, this is home. Yeah,
I
I mean
feel
that's how powerful Telluride is for me. Yeah,
it's an energy center.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just saying, like Telluride happened without me ever even knowing it existed.
Well, things don't just happen because we make them, right? Like things happen for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's like all of the above kind of answer. Like things do happen because we manifest them. Things also happen because we haven't done fucking anything, and um, and and it's good to live a positive life and think positively about the things we want.
Okay, so this is what I'll say about my vision board this year. It was very different. It's actually the first vision board I've ever done in my life. I used to do hardcore goals. That is yours too? Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah.
I used to do like hardcore goals many years ago, and I was just like so good at like making them happen. But they were goals. Like I am going to do this, and then I was like killing myself doing those things, so I quit. But my vision board this year, I would say it was different in that I didn't vision anything. I just kind of took the pictures and the mark. I was at an event, and I just kind of took the stuff, and I allowed it to create itself. So it was almost like I was getting a vision of what sort of like the universe had visioned for me or with me.
Hmm.
So it wasn't me putting my will upon the paper, so to speak. And
Yeah.
that felt really powerful. So I feel like my vision board is actually guidance. It's like, hey, this is where you're going, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah. I did mine with a bunch of kids. It was something I actually organized. And I brought a bunch of magazines that were old from my office. And I was like, I'm not going to find anything in here, but I'll do it with them because it's fun. A bunch of like old ag magazines and stuff like that, where it was like, there's no way. And I feel the same way. I almost feel like I just started cutting stuff out that was fun. And then I realized as I was putting it together that actually everything on that board was like really meaningful and good. Work flipped out and just fun stuff. And I was talking with the kids, and yeah, it was a cool process. I've also always been like a journaler, like I write things down, and but yeah, I'm all in for the vision board.
Yeah, it's been a very healthy guidance and reminder for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good. And okay, so here's my question. I've begun. I knew when I did it there was some empty space, and I was like, well, it's like heart. It's not done. And the message I got was, oh, you're going to fill it out.
Yeah, I was just looking and I'm like, that thing is like really empty from
Yeah.
here.
I was gonna say, so I've gotten my sort of my second, message. Have you added anything to yours yet?
No,
Since
there's no room. I like totally like
oh,
that full up. Yeah.
I love it. And your life is very full right now.
Life is very full right now.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's reflecting.
yeah, I love it. New home, new husband, new baby, new job. That is a full life.
New ideas, all the ideas, a million ideas all at once. Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. Okay, is there anything, any message, anything that comes to you, anything you want to share to the audience or just anything to say?
No, just thank you so much. This was
Yeah.
such a fun, reflecting experience.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom. And I miss you. I don't know when I'm gonna get back there, but
I
I can't
miss you
wait.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
guys make a trip to Salt Lake, let me know.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Of course.
So, all right. Well, take care. I love you.
Love you too. Thanks, Shelley. Thank you.